Aloha, folks, and welcome to the Empowered Hour here on the island of Maui. And I have a special guest who is coming on. I actually got to do a training with her recently that was active shooter preparedness. Say that 10 times fast. And I'm really excited to just learn more about the why behind the work that she does. Silvia Smart, take it away. Hello.
So nice to be here. Thank you for
Yeah.
inviting me
Yes,
to
nice to
this.
have you. Could you share a little bit to our audience about where you are in the world, what your title is, and then we can get into just some other questions.
Sure. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I'm actually sitting in my office. I've made a little booth where I
Nice.
record my podcast, the Empowerment Podcast by Naga. And
It's a great name.
thank you. The name of my martial arts school is Naga, so it made sense. And yes, and you like the empowerment word as well.
I do.
Yes. And I forget what the other thing was that you asked
Your
about.
fancy schmancy title.
My fancy title. So I train a martial art from Indonesia, which is called Pukulan, and um, I'm a 6th-degree black belt in that art, and my title is Guru.
Very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool. So, I think that it's really great that you have a podcast as well. What brought that about?
the pandemic.
Of course, right?
Well, yes, like the pandemic, so many things, but I've been so not here's my theory. I love training martial arts. Other people like training martial arts, but not everybody wants to train a martial art. But everybody does want to be safe and everybody does want to feel empowered.
Yeah.
So I've been really focusing on teaching empowerment self-defense for like 30 plus years, like since 1989 or something like that. And it's just something that I love to do. I see people coming into their own. I get positive feedback from them about the benefits of it, et cetera, et cetera. So, in my own little life, as I move through life, there are only so many people that I can reach with the information. And um, when the pandemic hit, I'm not sure the exact chain of events, but anyway, I was like, I could have a broader audience or reach more people with a podcast because I love listening to podcasts when I'm out walking the dog or doing a workout or whatever. It's like making dinner, listening to something, learning something. So why not a self-defense class in your ear? Like everything but the physical part, which is kind of my favorite part. But
Yeah.
all the other stuff, there's so much to it. So why not? And then the fun thing was that my son offered to be my editor. So he helped me with my mic setup and he's the one who does my editing and made the music. And so it's become a really cool project to do
That's awesome.
as a mom and
Yeah.
also as,
Aw.
as a
Aw.
martial artist and as a empowerment self-defense teacher. So all
That's
around like good times.
that's really, really cool. And,
Yeah.
when you were training, because 'cause I'm guessing you started out in, the martial arts arena and then decided that you needed to do more, so you wanted to do the self-defense piece. What compelled you to do that?
I think it was that realization. Well, you mean the martial arts in the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of a wreck. I was a young adult, kind of out of control in a lot of ways. And I had looked at a couple things and pulled it back in a little bit. And then I thought, wow, training martial arts might be A, really fun, and B, really good self discipline. So maybe I should just try it for a couple weeks, see how it goes. So I searched long and hard. I found a school here in Portland and an art that really sang to me. And I jumped in and I just haven't looked back. And then it was like, that was so much fun and so empowering for me. It was mind blowing. And then to know, like, not everybody wants to do this. this isn't right for everybody, and that's okay. So
Yeah.
how do we get that fun, that empowerment, that paradigm shifting stuff to a broader audience? What about you? I'm totally curious. Like, what's your journey like? Can I ask you?
Yeah, no, so for me, I got into the work that I do now because I have very lived experiences. I've had 3 stalkers, and I've dealt with, um, sexual assaults, and so I am a survivor. Um, yeah, and I just have had so many if somebody says, "This happened to me," I don't wanna be the person who'd be like, "That same thing happened to me too," because it's not like you're having tea time or something like that. You're talking about, real life
Heavy
scenarios that are
stuff.
very
Yeah.
scary and heavy. Yeah, but yeah, I think that for me, I got into a martial arts school. I had a stalker, at 16. He met me when I was 15 and he was 32, and he was a family friend. And, and then you look back and you're like, oh my God, you were grooming me. You weren't just giving me food and saying, here's a video games. It was like way more than that. So yeah, so I joined a martial arts school, and um, I spent 8 years there studying 7 styles of Japanese martial arts, and I loved Aikido. That was my main style, and really, really enjoyed it. I just had the best time with the art. I had some really difficult experiences that I don't think any woman should have to deal with at a dojo. Um, but I dealt with that with a lot of the male instructors. And um, so for me, I wasn't finding the empowerment that I needed at the school. I had a female Aikido instructor, and she was just in my mind like a total badass. And I've stayed in touch with her, but she didn't even realize why I had left the school. Um, I just knew that for me, safety was really paramount at the time,
Yeah.
and I wasn't feeling safe. So yeah, so there was that. My aha moment for me doing empowerment work and focusing on empowerment self defense specifically was I used to love going salsa dancing, and I would go like 7 nights a week
You
sometimes.
did love it.
I was, yeah, wild child, all that kind of stuff. I used to work up in Seattle, so I'm from Washington State. So Portland is like the sister state,
Neighborhood.
or yeah, well, sister town, not city. There you go. Not state.
There you go.
Portland feels like a state to me. I love Powell's. I could
Uh-huh.
probably spend all day there. But yeah, so I ended up doing salsa dancing, and one evening I got roofied, and I was taken from the ballroom that I was at. And I hit the person in the face, fell down a flight of stairs, and drove my way home. Um, and
Boy.
that I got out of that situation just because of basic instinct. And I really realized that a lot of the self-defense moves that I was learning, and a lot of self-defense blah 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 defense moves I was teaching, were not effective in that situation, and wouldn't be effective with me wearing 3-inch heels and a dress. And so I got my self-defense partner, Lee Villason, who is Laotian, and he focuses on both Japanese and Chinese martial arts. I got him to attack me while wearing 3-inch heels and a dress. And we went
Nicely
through
done.
all of the different
Yeah.
moves from all the different styles. And I was like, okay, these, there's like 20 moves that are very, very basic and they work. And that's what I want to focus on teaching.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, yeah. And so that was the start. And then I piloted a program at a middle school, and that moved to high school and all that, and then I moved to Maui.
And now you're in Maui. When did
I
you move to
know.
Maui?
2015.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a huge leap of faith for love. My long-term boyfriend, he got a job offer out here, and so um, originally I was like, no, I have a life outside of you.
Right. And then you're like, "Wait, Maui?"
And then yeah, and then all of my friends are like, excuse me, he just asked you to come to Maui and live with him.
Hello.
Crazy. And so,
So
yeah,
you've been, like, doing this in Maui?
I've been doing this in Maui. Yeah, I started my business, my self-defense business in 2016.
Mhm.
And for, years I just thought, God, what the hell am I doing? Like people are yeah, I'd have large groups of people come to one and I'm like, success, and then no one come to the next one and I'm like, I'm a failure.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that yeah, I think it's really interesting, this road, because it isn't for everyone. It being an entrepreneur isn't for everyone. Being an entrepreneur in the empowerment business isn't for everyone. Being an entrepreneur in empowerment and self-defense isn't for everyone. And so you have to really love what you do in order to be dedicated to doing it. So so yeah, yeah, that's that.
Can
But
I tell
yeah.
you that I had a dream about someone stalking someone?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was not last night, it was the night before, and it was so impactful, I woke up and told my husband about it. So, a young woman was being stalked, and I went in and I was like, "Okay, you need to start telling. You need to start telling everyone that you know that this is happening to you." And she was like, "Oh, I was trying to keep it a secret because it's so embarrassing." And I was like, anyway, it was one of these total dreams that only someone like you or me would have. And then gets even better. So then I ask Ice T to help me from Law and Order SVU.
Nice,
I
because
know.
everybody needs that.
So Ice T and I were like confronting the dude, and between Ice T and me, we take him down. So it was really cool.
Nice.
I
It's a
know.
great ending. Should be on Law and Order. That would be
Well, Law and
awesome.
Order this season, they had a whole episode on de-escalation. I mean, it's a really interesting TV show
That's
in some
cool.
ways. Yeah.
I wish that I could get into television. Wait, I don't
Not
really
for
have a
everybody either.
I don't own a television. We do Netflix here. I've gotten into a guilty pleasure. I watched Lucifer.
I haven't
It's a Netflix series, but it's about this the devil who falls in love with a detective at a police
Ooh.
force, and so
Ooh.
they have different episodes. I was
I'm
like,
gonna write that
I was
down.
like, there's de-escalation in here. They're talking about self-defense.
Yeah. It's
There's
not
some.
all guilty pleasure.
I was like, there's some women's empowerment outside of all of these other things that definitely are not, you
Right.
know? Uh, I
So
think
funny.
that's so interesting, and I wonder if you feel the same. But since you've gone down this journey, this path, you reread some of the books that you used to love when you were younger, or you watch the different movies that you used to find so compelling, and then you point stuff out to yourself, like, oh, that's definitely a narcissist right there, or oh, this person is so manipulative, look at all the signs.
Grooming,
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I was raised by a single mom and mostly my dad was part of the picture, but and she was quite a feminist in the 70s. And I think I always had that awareness, but for sure there's this detailed awareness, like,
Yeah.
"Oh, look at the strategy that that guy is using," or, "That's what we talk about there, and I could mention this in a class, and someone could go and, use that as a resource," or whatever. So, yeah, like, pop culture is full of great examples.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was addicted to Dexter, that series
Oh,
with the
my
serial killer.
my son and I used to watch that, Dexter, yeah. Wait, no, we
Yeah,
were watching something else, but yeah, I have seen that.
yeah, I was like, oh,
Serial killer
you're
who would.
good. you
Yeah,
know like,
yeah,
very unsuspecting.
yeah,
um but
yeah.
yeah, then I tried watching that series You, that is about, it's actually about a guy who is like a stalker who's completely obsessed with these different women, and falls in love with them and creates like a whole narrative and everything. But I just couldn't get into it because it was like too close to home.
Too close to home. Yeah, some of the stuff, it's like, "Yeah, no, not interested." Like, give me
Yeah,
something light. Disney Channel, anyone?
yeah.
Like,
Well,
well,
and
that but no,
even so, yeah,
even
you
so, like, never mind.
watch the Disney movies and stuff, and
Oh,
I'm like, I want to just sit down with some of them. Like,
just be
okay,
like,
sister,
"What?"
you gave up your your fin for legs that feel like knives. Like, come on now. You don't need
Yes,
none of that.
yes.
Make him get
Oh,
the fin. Come on.
yeah.
Uh,
Like, go be happy in the ocean with your
I
people,
know. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, especially with pop culture and everything else. Just the way that our minds have kind of molded to these ideas and ideals when it comes to how women should be, and how they should act and what empowerment looks like, because usually in a lot of like especially the kids films, it's, name calling and being bossy, in certain aspects that don't necessarily seem assertive. They seem like you're putting somebody down, and it's
Mm.
less empowering. But yeah, I pay attention to that a lot.
I think as empowerment self-defense teachers, when we're in front of a group of women, and then, there are times when we're in front of a group of LGBTQ or, young men who've been assaulted or
Yeah.
whatever, but especially when we're with women, I think in my mind frame, like all the ways that I was raised as a girl into a young woman was, there were a lot of, aside from the feminism, society was telling me, like, don't make a scene, don't speak up, take care of everyone in the room, you're
Hmm.
last,
Yeah.
give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and just, be all generous and all giving and quiet and submissive and those things. Like, whenever I'm teaching and I talk about that, there are always people in the room who are like, "But I like to be nice." And I'm like, "So do I." Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
okay it's okay to be nice. The question for us empowerment teachers, I think, becomes, when does that as a default, with no other conscious choice available, when does that become something that puts me at risk for
Hmm.
sexual assault or violence? And
Yeah.
pretty much always it does.
Well, and
So,
also, how does it put you into a situation where your self-esteem has dampened,
yeah,
your confidence level is down? I mean, it does make you more susceptible to assaults and everything else, but just in the day to day, when it comes to teaching empowerment, I've worked with people on how to negotiate their pay, because they didn't feel like it was right to ask. And I was like, well, how do you think that all these guys got like twice the amount of pay? You
yeah,
gotta
exactly.
ask.
Use
So
your voice, speak up,
yeah,
make your boundaries clear, all that good
yeah.
stuff.
But I
Yeah.
think I think that it's such an important topic. Um, I have this activity that I'll do in my class where I do a finger poke to the throat, and I'll let them do it for a minute, going back and forth and practicing on each other. And never fails, they will be like, I'm not gonna really do this, we're just gonna try it out. And then I get
Yeah.
everybody in a straight line, and I actually have them try it on me, and I'll tap out when I start to feel something. And it's a very emotional experience for a lot of people. They have a really hard time with that. I've had people who are like, I really don't want to hurt you. um, and so afterwards, then I explained, I was like, the reason why I take you through this activity, the reason why I know that it's really, really hard. I said, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard was that for you to do that to me, knowing that I'm so awesome and amazing? And then everybody's like, a 10. And the people who are like ones, I'm like, okay, little masochist, that's fine. Uh,
True.
I'm like, "That's fine. Have a conversation with you later." Yeah, so it's really interesting to me to have that talk, but I say, the reason why I had you do that, the reason why I had you do that to me is because you just met me and you've decided that I'm an amazing, wonderful person. You don't want to do anything to hurt me. And 85 to 90% of the people who attack you are going to be people who you know. So you're going to have that same reaction where you're just going to feel really icky about it. You don't want to actually do it. And that might be your lifeline. And so then there's like the aha moment, which
Great
I always
aha.
think is, yeah, I always think it's
Yeah.
really good. Do you do something like that in class where you kind of, yeah, I would
Yeah,
imagine so.
throughout the whole class, like, people are very welcome to speak up, like, "How are you feeling? How does this feel? And what's your reaction? What's your body telling you?" And, um, inevitably, there are a lot of us who have been trained, like, we didn't grow up wrestling, we didn't grow up, like, play fighting, um, you know actually, I had this really cool conversation with a woman named Pi Bateman, who is one of the founders of empowerment and self-defense teaching back in the 70s. And I asked her at the very end of our interview, like, what do you think has been the biggest change that you've seen in terms of this empowerment self-defense? And she said Title IX, which surprised me. But what she said was, when you get women coming in who have used their bodies, who have kicked that ball, who have been elbowed across the head, like going for the net when they've been tripped and, shoved and pushed, or, played water polo and hockey. And it's like we start to feel more comfortable in our bodies and using them to do empowering things.
Yeah.
So I totally got where she was coming from. But what I wanted to say was the same paradigm. If my default is, I'm a peacekeeper, I'm a peacemaker, I don't want to hurt anybody, and that is where I go, naturally kind of go, without the choice of knowing how to fight, without the choice of knowing how to hit really hard. If I don't have that choice, I can't make that choice. I'm limited.
Yeah.
And so learning how to hit, learning how to poke, learning how to do all the things that you're teaching people means that we have more choices. What could be wrong with that? Just having more options available to us versus just this one small default, which is, oh, I don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a broader way. It's a more open way of living. It's this paradigm shifting, like, it's empowering, right?
Yeah.
It's like I have
Yeah.
choice.
Well, and the great piece to that too is I think that it is such an ongoing process. I had Rachel Collins on, who does MMA, and she's also in Oregon. Um, but she and I were having this conversation where sometimes we're doing different activities and we go into our default mode, which um, for her might be like a freeze or like to walk away or different stuff like that. And I know that for me, I have like similar responses where it's like a shutdown moment, and then I have to remind myself, like, no, 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 activate,
Breathe,
activate,
go.
activate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and so it's really interesting to just witness that process that people go through even after years and years of practicing, which is why I think that it's so important for people. It's great if you do a one-off self-defense class, but I think it's even better when you realize the importance that it has, the effect that it has when you are consistently practicing it. Um,
Yeah, it's a life skill like CPR
oh
training.
yeah,
It's a life skill like fire drills. It's
yeah,
like just practice. Every year take a class, every quarter take a class, find different people to learn from, train Krav Maga for 3 months,
oh
train
yeah,
one, train Aikido, like, just use your body. Like,
yeah,
get it going.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
what's that tattoo? You've got a tattoo.
It's
Hello,
a hello, it's a willow. I turned 60 in it was oh, it was right before the pandemic. Was that true?
congratulations.
True. 61 now, yeah. So,
Nice.
right before the pandemic, and my family, my husband, my son, my daughter, and I had gone through a very intense, like, 2 or 3 years,
Hmm.
like, very intense, and,
Yeah,
um So for my 60th birthday, I asked them if they'd be willing to get tattoos with me and go spend a day with a tattoo person next time they were all home,
Yeah,
which was January, right after my birthday. And so the kids picked the theme, which is willow, because we have a big willow tree in our backyard, and it reminded them of home. And so we each got to pick whatever art we wanted and put it wherever we wanted. But we kind of hung out together with this tattoo dude and got tattoos, and it was really fun.
that's
With
awesome.
my willow.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Have you ever seen the Hildebrandt Brothers, um, J.R.R. Tolkien calendar?
No.
So you have to look it up. It's an
Okay.
old one. They might have it at Powell's, but the Hildebrandt brothers, their paintings looked so real to me. And one of my favorite pictures in that in that calendar is Old Man Willow.
Oh,
And yeah, and he just it's this giant tree, huge schnoz, and just looks absolutely gorgeous. It's a beautiful tree. So I always wanted to have a
awesome.
willow tree at my house.
We have this huge willow tree. When we moved in, it was standing, and the kids and I built this killer tree house in it. And the treehouse ultimately was what was holding up the willow and keeping it from crashing down.
Oh
So it
no.
got it got to a point where it was a little unsafe. So one long week, I took the kids on a backpacking trip, and my husband was like, "I'm gonna take down I'm gonna take down the treehouse, that safety hazard." And within 2 hours, the willow tree just crashed down to the ground. And we left it there, and it's created this huge new willow tree. Like, it's
Oh
just growing
wow.
really cool. Like, that's a cool thing about willows, they just keep going.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very resilient willow trees.
When you're talking empowerment and self-defense, you're talking willow trees.
There you go. That's
Yeah,
very cool.
yes.
Well, oh, how long have you been doing this? How long have you been doing this work?
I started training martial arts in 1987,
Okay.
March of 1987, and, um, I've had my started teaching pretty quickly. In the art that I train, it's part of the way we learn is by getting, like,
We all
guinea pigs
yeah,
and
we
yeah,
also would do that.
yeah, which
Yeah.
is great, and it's also a great skill to know how to teach. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. My undergraduate and my graduate degrees are both in education, but,
Oh, wow,
um,
okay.
so so I knew I wanted to teach, and then I was teaching in another country, and a war started, and I had to leave, and there was this
Oh,
self-defense
wow.
teacher training program, and I'm like, great reason to go back. So at the school where I was training, I did a 2-year certification program and started going from there. Loved it. Then my husband and I opened our own school here on the other side of Portland. When we had young kids and travel back and forth got harder, we both loved teaching. And we met at the martial arts school, and we always wanted to have our own school. So in 2003, I started teaching for us. Like, we started our own school.
Yeah,
And that included self-defense workshops on the weekends and things like that, and workshops for kids, self-defense workshops, along with the martial arts. And, now I teach corporate classes and at organizations and nonprofits, and groups come to my school or I go to them, and, I teach on Zoom.
it's awesome.
Yeah, so it's become a real kinda what I do.
Like, it's the real deal. This is
It's like,
awesome.
what happened? What happened? Because it was what I liked and I just kept doing it.
So when did you transition because you got your teaching degree, so you were teaching before, and, when did you transition from that to just full-time this?
Right. Um, in I had a private situation in another country where I was teaching special education,
Okay,
and I found other gigs for myself with the American school there and with a small local school where they only had kids with special needs, and they needed some extra tutoring and stuff. So I was doing that, and though I love travel, um, I the special ed, the education, the teaching math, reading, I was like, I love teaching, but where I'm really joyful is on the floor. It's
Yeah,
on the mat. Like, that's what I really love. And so when I had to leave that country and when I decided to come back here and really dive into the self-defense program and my own training, that was in 91, I think, 90, 91. That's when I was like, "Okay, that this is what I really wanna do." Like,
that's awesome.
this is what brings me joy.
That's very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. N I know that for a lot of people, like, the work-life balance is really important, and you also have a family. How do you find that you navigate that, so that you have the time to do all of the different things that you love doing?
My kids are older now, they're 21 and 23,
Okay.
but when I started teaching, like, when we opened our own school, they were 3 and 5. And somehow we did it. And it meant a lot of sacrifice
Yeah,
for my kids, for my family. It meant that if my son or daughter had a soccer or softball game on a Saturday during class time, my husband would get to go and I would teach,
yeah,
or vice versa, or evenings were kind of rough around dinner time because usually it was just one of us home. So there was a lot of, for years people would always say, like, we never see both of you together, we only ever see one of you and the kids, or but we never see you and Jeff together because you're always like divide and conquer, is really what we did. And it was great. There were a lot of things about it that were great. But it was hard. I mean, there was sacrifice. And the
yeah.
kids trained. Both my kids trained, and, they had to. And then when they were old enough, they're like, "Yeah, I don't really wanna do this anymore because my mom and dad are my teachers, and it's really not cool."
Aw.
So,
Well, at least they have the basic training, which is good.
they do have the basic training, and they can really take care of themselves, and they have taken care of themselves. Like, it's shown over and over again that
That's
they know
awesome.
what to do. Yeah. Yay.
Did you ever have a situation that you were in that you felt, um, you know, very disempowered, um, and had to basically either utilize the skills that you've learned or something along those lines?
I honestly feel like I use this stuff every day.
Yeah,
I just use it every day in the way that I walk and talk and hold myself and set my boundaries and use my voice and continue to be present, even when things are feeling uncomfortable and awkward, and just,
yeah,
being able to stay present and say my piece and let it be awkward and not have to jump in and fill it, you
yeah,
know, and let people get their own consequences for whatever their behavior is. And so in that way, I say, yeah, I use it every day. I have had a couple of times when I saw that it could get physical, and it could escalate to that point. And in both of those cases that I'm thinking about right now, my words and my body language and all the other pieces came in and kept that person from taking that next step. But I was
yeah,
ready. I was totally ready.
that's good.
And my dream with iced tea will tell you that I know I can do it. If we have to,
So
iced tea. Yeah.
that's always a good sign.
How about you? Have you ever had to use your physical skills?
Well, punching that person in the face.
Oh, good point.
I
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I have used my skills. As a survivor, I've been in situations where, for me, when I was a lot younger, um, and dealing with, more of an authority figure, it was something that I didn't actually fight back. I said what I needed to say, but it didn't really hold any weight. Um, so I also had a situation where somebody was trying to drag me out on the dance floor, and I moved so fast and I broke their wrist, um, and they had to be dragged out of the of the dance hall.
Wow.
Um, so that was that where it was a great moment for me because it was just an automatic reaction. Um, and I was excited because it was just this second nature. But yeah, my last attempted sexual assault was in 2011, and I was able to actually get out of that just because of verbal
Yeah.
skills,
Good.
and just being very clear and setting very clear boundaries. So that actually worked in my favor,
Yeah.
and I was able to run from that situation. So I thought that
Nice.
was great.
That is
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
I have a funny story, about my daughter.
yeah.
You
Tell
wanna
me.
hear it?
I do.
Okay, so in our art, we practice 108 different, they're called holds. We call them holds or like grab arts. Like someone grabs you this way, what do you do? They grab you this way, what do you do? They grab you with a punch, what do you do? They stick a gun in your face, what do you do? Like 108 of those. And
Yeah,
so we build our muscle memory, we build our speed, and over time, after you're training 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or plus years, like, it gets automatic, right?
yeah.
And that's what we're building towards, and, so my daughter was 13, and she'd been training really since she was about 5,
Yeah.
maybe 4.
Mhm.
So she'd been training many, many years, and, we were putting her on a plane for the first time to fly somewhere all by herself. And my husband and I were sitting with her, and he was very worried about her. Like, do you think it's too early? Amelia, do you really feel like you can can you really do this? I probably shouldn't have said her name, but anyway, do you really feel like you can do this? And she was like, yeah, I can protect myself. And I was like, dude, she's got this. Like, she's been training all like, she's got this. She knows what to do. And he goes, "But what if?" And he jumps up really quickly and he grabs her in a bear hug from the front, like a really tight hold. She grabbed him back and she went boom with her knee and she yelled in his ear, our Kia, the Kia that we have.
Yeah.
And he doubled over and his face got bright red and he started sputtering and then he fell to the ground and he was like rolling around on the ground and he looked up at me and he goes, "Sil, I think she's gonna be okay."
That's
And of course my
awesome.
daughter is like, "Oh, Dad, I'm so sorry." And she started crying. "I didn't mean to hurt you." And I was like, "Right on, sister. You did it. No, you did it. Like, awesome. That's perfect." He
Yeah,
had no business grabbing you like that. Like, it was to me, it was really great to see my daughter being able to do that.
of
That's what every
course.
mom wants, right?
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. They wanna know you can kick some tail.
yeah,
No, that's
yeah,
oh, yeah, I love that example. I love that you practice that on a consistent basis inside class. I love doing the what if game. Because I do that in my classes as well. And I think that it is so important because it gets people thinking. I had a Sri Lankan student, and uh, she was able to deal with this sort of seedy neighbor because she would always have to see him like she would be walking past a window and he'd be looking in and all of that. And so we started playing the what if game, and then she stared him down, and he never bothered her after that.
nice.
It was like, just stare at him and don't smile.
Totally. And that is the empowerment self-defense is all of those little things. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like the big knee or the elbow
Oh,
across or
yeah.
the like punch to the face. It's like the way that you look at somebody and don't break it and
Yeah.
don't smile. Like, it's the face, it's the body language. That is where it's at. And so most of the time.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I guess part of maybe it's because of me studying Aikido, but I will honestly do everything that I can to avoid a physical confrontation. And
Yeah, of course.
I
Yeah.
think that it's great to actually teach that. I've talked to so many different instructors and different styles, and I can find gems in every one.
Yeah.
I think that there's something really great about that. But I have been to places with male teachers where it's like talking about how to maim, how to, take somebody out. And sometimes, I think that when you are in a situation where your life depends on it, the gloves are off and you're going to do everything that you need to defend yourself. Um, but I also look at these different situations where I've been in these self defense classes and I'm like, I don't know how many women would actually feel comfortable with this or this move. Um, yeah, because I had one where a guy was saying to put the person's head between your crotch and like squeeze your legs together. And I just thought,
That sounds
my
like really
God,
awkward.
man, this is like the most awkward position. And it was like a
Like a
jujitsu
oh
place. And I was just like,
gosh.
I would never, if I had been assaulted or if I had dealt with sexual trauma, I would not want this guy's face right in my
None of
crotch.
us would wanna
I would,
do that.
like it's
Sorry, that's
so
not yeah,
uncomfortable right now.
that's like a
So
dude move. That is
yeah.
not a yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got really warm. There's
Oh,
no air in
that's
here.
okay. That's okay.
Hold on one second.
That's what usually
Oh
happens to me over here on Maui. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sweating bullets right now,
gosh.
Um, luckily, nobody
Oh.
has to smell me.
Oh, thank you for that. Zoom, it doesn't
So-
have that sensory
oh,
impact.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I think you're right. I mean, I think it's a really good point. A lot of times I'll talk about like when you get your fingers in somebody's eyes, you want to push in. You want to squeeze them the eyeballs back. You want to scratch if you can. And of course, it's totally gross and it's disgusting and it would feel weird and whatever, but there's a little bit of desensitization too that comes with that. Like you might need to do it. So
Yeah.
like be ready for it. Hopefully not. Hopefully nobody ever needs this stuff, right? That is our hope that when we're teaching this, not that like everyone goes out and picks a fight and shows how cool they are, but that like we just know it and we have it if we need it and hopefully we never need it. But to know like yeah, if I crash into somebody's throat with my
Yeah.
white hand or my dragon claw, whatever you want to call it, I might spasm their windpipe. I could grab it and pull it. I could break it. That's
Yeah.
disgusting. Call 911, or not. And that those are choices that we might have to make.
Yeah.
And so to know beforehand, then it's not as shocking.
Yeah. And to practice it
Yeah.
consistently. That's the key is because yeah, you get into these situations and um without the practice, then somebody could take a self-defense class or something like that. Maybe something will stick with you. You would hope that it would, especially as a teacher. um, but I just know that the consistent practice is best. So
Yeah, I know that if it's been too long between CPR classes for me, I get a little nervous. Like, what if I had to use this? What would I remember the order?
I have my
And what if
CPR
things have
class
changed?
tomorrow. Yeah,
Oh, you do? Good for you.
but it has been a year
Well, we've
where
had a pandemic,
we haven't. Yeah, I'm
you
like,
know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like getting re-upped, and so it's just
It's
yeah, I hear you. I think that it is so important. I'm curious. So you teach self defense not only for your school, but you also teach it with the National Women's Martial Arts Federation, correct?
no.
Not yet.
No. So they have a certification program.
Okay.
Um, And I wanted to go through that and get certified because I just always want to make sure that I'm teaching at the top of my game.
Yeah.
And they're a national, like really awesome program. So I went through the certification process with them. I don't teach for them. The only affiliation that I have is I'm a member and I'm certified by them to be an empowerment self defense instructor, but I don't teach for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. That
Yeah.
makes sense. That's really awesome though. I'm actually I've been looking at that myself just because of
I
the
so recommend it for you. Just like the mentorship alone and just like it's just a great like you love what you do.
oh
It's
yeah.
a way to like take your game to a different place or maybe think about new things or like tweak it a little bit or whatever. But
Yeah.
and also those connections with these great other great women who are doing the same thing that you are and that I am, and
Yeah.
it it's a whole world.
Well,
Big
I've
world.
been a member of
Oh,
the
good,
yeah, of the National Women's Martial Arts Federation for over a year, and then I'm going to be doing a workshop in July. Called Tapping into Your True North. So that'll be kind of cool because I haven't done a workshop for them yet. But I definitely want to do the self defense one because I've done it through ESD Global and I have that certification. So I'm
good.
working on my level 3 status for that. Um, but I just really love, I've I keep meeting all of these women from all over the place, and especially in the National Women's Martial Arts Federation. And it's just really cool to, I just, I kind of geek out. Like people geek out on, actors and different stuff like that. I'm like, oh my God, do you know who that is? That's
In the
Silvia
know.
Smart who's doing active shooter preparedness.
Guess who I interviewed yesterday for the
Who?
podcast?
Who?
Jocelyn Hollander. She
Oh,
she is a professor at the University of Oregon whose entire life is about research about the effectiveness of empowerment self-defense.
that's so cool.
She has great statistics and information, and yeah, I
Wow.
know, I'm like you, like, I get to talk to all these cool people.
You're like,
I
"Oh
get
my
to
god,
talk
I
to
can't believe
in
it!"
Maui.
You're like, "Can I read that research? That's so awesome."
Yes, yes, I can send you her stuff. Yeah,
Oh, cool. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I was just saying in general,
Oh, yeah.
that's what I would think you'd be saying, but I would also be interested. Of course, I'd be interested in the research, so that sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
it's so great. I mean, what she's proving by her studies, her academic research is that when and her she focuses on women, when a woman takes an empowerment self-defense class, the likelihood that she will experience assault goes down by 55%,
Wow.
which we all always knew, but she's
Yeah.
just showing it. And then there's some other recent studies, 3 other recent studies that show there are even more proof. Like this stuff that we do, it actually really works.
Yeah.
Which is good to know. Like,
We
experientially,
can
I would
only
say
hope, right?
yeah, I know. Like, I'm doing this because I feel like it makes a difference and makes the world a better place and impacts people's lives, but to have actual research behind it is wow. It's so cool.
Do you have a success story? You don't have to share like names or anything, but do you have a success story of a student um, that has went through something?
Yeah, I mean, they come back to me all the time and it's little small things like this class changed my life. I was able to go into work the next day and ask for a raise. And it's so funny to me how taking an empowerment self-defense class where we're like hitting pads and and doing all the other things too, that like really fuels the confidence to literally the next day go in and be like, hmm,
I deserve
I'm gonna make
this.
my life better. Yeah, like, I have
Yeah.
value.
Yeah.
And, or things like, I finally talked to my husband about doing his fair share around the house or, standing up to my son or my daughter in a new way with regards to their behavior or, uh, things like that, I get back all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. It's
Yeah. How about
interesting
you?
because, well, yeah, I had one that was really, I've had a lot throughout the years, but one that really stood out. I had a woman who came to Maui to get away from her husband, and so she took her son and came here, um, and he actually came to get to grab his son. And so I spent 2 months training her, um, and then the situation happened, and she was actually able to defend herself, and it was really really great. She was
Mhm.
able to defend herself and her son, and he, flew back, no kid. And I was just so grateful. But she called me literally right after, like she was like, "Oh my god,
Guess what?
this happened," and she sounded so nervous, and she was sounding a little
Sure.
bit like, um "Oh, did I do this right?" Or, "Oh my gosh, what happened? Da da da." And I was like, "Oh my god, you kicked butt!
I
Like,
did it.
you did it! This is the coolest thing ever!" And then she got so excited after I said that because it was sort of
Great.
like this affirmation of like, "Yes, it happened." So I love those moments. I have, since I work in um, I love doing school programs, and I started out. I did help one of my students get out of a situation and confront her family member about some sexual
Oh,
abuse that was happening at the home.
wow.
So that was really huge. So yeah, you go through and you do this work, and I realize that that is why you do the work. Like, I've had so many different moments just in these years of doing this work where I think, "Oh my god, what am I doing with my life?" I had a situation that came up just as the pandemic was hitting, where everything was going really well. In-person trainings were at a max, and I just thought, "Oh my gosh." With the pandemic hitting, I should quit. What should I do? I should switch careers. I should do something different. And I always have some sort of sign that just leads me back
Keep
to,
going. Keep
yeah,
going. Yeah.
yeah. So, so my question to you is, do you have a piece of advice that you would give your younger self if um, you could just share one nugget of knowledge or information that you wish that she would have known?
Yes. Um, I would tell my little self, I would say, um, you are a good person and you belong.
Uh,
Because for me, I think that was a driving force. I didn't feel like I was a good person and I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. And there were some moments that were pretty tough and pretty chaotic. And it drove me to do a lot of, you know, dumb things. And I had the genetics set up in my body through various and sundry family trees, to really go deep on some stuff that was not good for me, not healthy, and I spent years searching to belong and searching to know if I was a good person or not. And I think
mm.
almost every person I've met is a good person. And I think we all belong here on planet Earth. I believe that we all deserve to breathe air and take up space on planet Earth. And if we all really truly felt that way and felt valued and connected to one another, I feel like the world would be a better place. So yeah, I think that would be something I'd really want myself to know way
I
back
love
when.
that. I love that. That's awesome. Well, and then, random, but how do people find you with all of the great work that you're doing, so that they can follow your podcast, and learn, when you have classes and different stuff like that? What's a way that they can reach you?
They Thank you for asking that. Yeah, the podcast is the Empowerment Podcast by Naga. And that's NAGA, and it is available on all the main platforms like Google and Apple and Stitcher and Spotify and, like, all those places, and it's on YouTube, which is weird because it's just a picture. It's not really like a give and take,
Yeah,
because I don't do that. But so that's great, and I recommend if people wanna listen to it that you start at the beginning and work your way through, just because it kinda
progression.
yeah, it kinda goes with the flow, and I mention previous episodes and, like, reflect back on the continuum of sexual assault and violence, or, like, "Remember when we talked about voice? This is" so, and then my martial arts school's website is nagacommunity.com,
Okay.
and there are workshops and things listed there. You can also find transcripts of the podcast if you're hearing impaired or, wanna
Wow.
wanna go grab information off that to put in a paper you're writing, or I don't know, whatever. Um, and yeah, and we're on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the
Awesome.
usual.
Is that under the Naga community? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Awesome. So definitely, if you are watching, go to those different places, follow, watch, like. Those are great. And thank you so much for coming on. This has just been awesome.
It's been so fun to talk with you. And next time
Yeah.
I'm in Maui, I'm going to come visit.
Oh, yeah. Seriously,
You
do.
can take me snorkeling. How
I
about
will
that?
take you snorkeling. I shall
Okay,
take you to cool, fun hiking spots. It'll be good. It'll
I'm
be
in.
good.
That sounds
Yes.
good. Yay!